Exploring WoW Classic Part 13, Ahn'Qiraj. Getting into the uninstanced open world version of Ahn'Qiraj is actually pretty easy. You're going to want to start by swimming around the southern coast of Tanaris, way past the Land's End beach, to the spot that you could see on my map there. And you really just kind of ride up these rocks. I recommend having an epic mount for this. And I should say before we go too much further that this is the one area that you absolutely need some kind of a slow fall effect to get into. I used a noggin fogger for this footage, but you can also get in with a mage. But before we proceed, caution! Res sickness is a thing. If you die off in the middle of nowhere in some of these weird places, the game won't know what to do. It'll put your ghost in Dun Moreau or the Barrens, and you might not be able to get back, and you'll have to accept a spirit res and all the repair costs that go with that. Be careful and don't fall. Now, what we're generally going to be doing is simply traveling west along this ledge. You can fall down there, don't. There's no way to get back up. It just brings you into an area to the south of Ungoro. It's literally just a big empty pit. There's nothing there. You can proceed to jump down into Ungoro Crater, but beyond that, there's literally nothing. Now, proceeding here to the west, it's just, some of the usual unfinished terrain that we've seen before. And you gotta kind of span all of the distance from Ungoro Crater until we get into the mountains, leading into the southern end of Silithus, down where the ruins of Ahn'Qiraj actually are. So I'm going to speed up the footage a little bit to get to the tricky part. There are some areas going through here where you can fall into more, unfinished terrain. Don't. The way to get to where we're going is you have to climb over the mountains along the southern, left end edge of this unfinished area. You're going to have to use some sort of a slow fall or like a pally bubble like I do to jump off this one mountaintop. But do not go down into that area on the right with all that unfinished terrain with the jagged edges. There's no way to get out, and it leads to nothing. Now, once you get into this area here, down in the southeastern corner of what Tanaris should be on the world map, and this part of terrain where we can't go any further to the west, this is where you've gotten to your destination where we're going to need the slow fall. Now, this spot right here is where you're going to want to use your noggin fogger or your slow fall. Check your mini-map to match the location I'm in. And then you're going to want to run forward with your epic mount and jump with the slow fall effect active. And the idea is that you have to get your jump to span the gap, that crevice that we just floated over here. There's no other way to get over that. And you have to get over that gap, and that's how you get into the uninstanced version of Ahn'Qiraj that we're floating into now. There is some unfinished terrain here, like some gaps between areas where you can float and fall down under the world. So be careful with that. All the normal disclaimers apply. But for here, we're going to take a look, and I'm going to speed up the footage in a couple of places and just show off some of the highlights. The uninstanced Ahn'Qiraj is dramatically different from what we saw in either of the finished raid zones. So out here in the middle of nowhere, you're going to find a bunch of these strange obelisks. There seems to be leftovers of some roads leading between them. It's not entirely clear, what the plans were for this. Maybe this was going to be a questing zone before they decided to turn it into a raid. Maybe more of the Scepter of the Shifting Sands content was going to be down here. I'm not really sure, and I haven't heard any official answers on that. One thing that is interesting to note, if you take a look at the mini-map while you're down here, you'll notice that the mini-map does not match the terrain that's actually rendered in the game. There are a lot of structures on the mini-map that are not present in the rendered terrain, and a bunch of the rendered terrain is not reflected on the mini-map. So it's kind of interesting. My personal theory is that maybe there was going to be some more Scepter of the Shifting Sands content down here before you were able to get to the portals for the raid instance. Like maybe the portal to AQ20 was just going to lead to some of this terrain, and the AQ20 portal was going to be somewhere else down in here. That's just a guess, though, based on what I've seen in this terrain. One of the other interesting things is that some of the terrain down here, like these wall widgets, and there are some weird bug eggs and stuff down on the ground, and some of that like floating wall we're looking at, they don't appear anywhere else in the game. You can't find some of the stuff anywhere else out in the world map. So that further leads me to think that there was going to be like some questing content down here that eventually just got axed. Now, one of the things to know is that from the area you're in down here, the uninstanced terrain, you really can't get out. When you're done exploring this area, you're gonna have to hearth. Another kind of interesting thing is that you can see here the terrain does start to kind of get close to the terrain in AQ20, but it's not a perfect match. So it's clear that, after they got in to like where the gauntlet starts, that's where the terrain starts to get, different and wonky. But anyway, something else that I thought was kind of fun. In some places while you're down in this area, you are literally like off the grid. The game has no idea where you are, and your location will show up as just a blank space. Like if you hit O to bring up your guild roster, or if you do a /who on yourself, there'll just be a blank space where your zone would be, and you won't be in any local chat channels. It'll just leave the Silithus chat channel, and you'll be literally like off the grid in the middle of nowhere. So that's just kind of fun. Might be a neat place to hide and pull a prank on some guildies or something. So yeah, just enjoy the rest of the footage here, exploring around what there is of Ahn'Qiraj out in the open world. There are some other interesting terrains I'm going to stop in a few spots to show off, like some of these obelisks and unfinished structures. I really think that some of the Scepter of the Shifting Sands content was intended to be down in here. It's clear that, there was going to be something here. I don't think that any of this reflects like the intended terrain for AQ40 or anything like that. So enjoy the content, and thanks for watching.